Hello, and welcome back to the Specs and LCDs QA Instructions module. In this video, we'll explore DoubleClick's best practices for expanding formats. DoubleClick's LCDs are based on the specifications for expanding formats that are accepted on most sites. These best practices are specific to the expand and collapse functions, which allow a creative to expand from its designated size to cover an area on the web page. There are 6 different types of LCDs for expanding formats that you can use to QA if the publisher's specs are not provided. The Rich Media QA team recommends that you check that creatives are usable or user-friendly, have an appropriate expansion size, a user-friendly click-through exit, a matching call to action, a working manual close counter, and follow our guidelines for auto expansions. An obvious LCD to check is a creative's usability. This means that each expansion and collapse should happen quickly and smoothly. The expand and collapse methods should also be identical. For instance, if the creative expands upon a mouse over, it should collapse upon mouse off. And if an ad is a click to expand, it should collapse by clicking the close button. Users must also be able to distinguish a creative's background exit area from its expansion hotspot. For example, if the hit area to expand covers 100% of the creative, the user will not have the option to click through to the background exit. DoubleClick recommends that the hit area or hotspot for the expansion cover between 25 and 33% of the unexpanded creative. There should also be no clickable transparent areas in the creative. These can annoy the user, and publishers will likely reject the ad. DoubleClick also provides several recommended sizes that you are encouraged to use to QA. These dimensions are standard for DoubleClick's rich media ads, as they do not over-intrude on the web page's content. Keep in mind that these specs aren't requirements, just recommendations. If available, you should always use the publisher's specs. The next LCD we'll discuss is the QA team's click-through requirements. When a user clicks through to an ad's destination, the ad should always collapse, and any animations, videos, or sounds that are currently playing should pause or stop. Otherwise, the user would need to reopen the creative and manually stop the audio and video, or they would have to collapse the creative once they return from an advertiser's site. This can cause a bad user experience and annoy advertisers and publishers. You should also verify that a creative's call to action, or CTA, matches the actual expansion and collapse methods. For instance, if a creative is click to expand, the call to action on the collapse panel should clearly say, "Click here to expand." And as you learned earlier, the expand and collapse methods should be identical. If an ad is click to expand, then it should be click to collapse. And if an ad is rollover to expand, then it should be a roll-off to collapse. The next LCD is DoubleClick's requirement for a close button on all expanding creatives. Each expanded panel, even those that expanded by a mouse over, should include a functioning close button. Most sites require close buttons on expanded panels because they provide a visual cue to users that they can collapse the expanding creatives at any time. You should also check that the close button does not overlap the expansion hit area. This best practice prevents the creative from immediately re-expanding after a user clicks the close button. And in the output console, you should check to see that the manual close counter tracks correctly when the close button of an expanded panel is clicked. DoubleClick's close button component automatically tracks when it's clicked, so we recommend that you use that. Make sure that the close button component is in the top layer so that it isn't blocked by other content in the creative. Let's test this sample creative for call to action and exit issues. Notice how the call to action says click to expand. Watch what happens when I click it. As you can see, I didn't click the ad, and instead, it expanded upon rollover. Since it expands on rollover, it should be revised because it does not match the call to action. Now let's close the creative. In addition to having call to action issues, the close button triggers an exit. This means that the background exit layer is above the close button, which also merits a rejection. The last LCD we'll review is the specifications for pre-expanded creatives. If a creative expands without user interaction, it should auto-collapse within 15 seconds, and animation should stop unless it is interacted with by a user. This follows the same 15-second guidelines as the video and animation LCDs. A pre-expanded creative must always include a close button on its expanded panel. And finally, the div layer of a web page must collapse with the rest of the creative. You'll see how this is tested for in our test cases videos in the next module. Let's test another expanding creative. In this example, we'll look at a pushdown ad that auto-expands when loaded. We're going to test its close functionality. I'll start by refreshing it. As you can see, the expanded panel does not contain a close button, which would normally appear here. This itself is a means for rejection. Now that it has auto-collapsed, let's verify that the div layer closed as well. This is done by right-clicking on the previously covered area, which is here. Uh-oh. As you can see, the div layer did not properly collapse in this creative. We know this because the Flash Settings menu is still visible when I right-click the expanded area. Whereas up top, where the panel was not covering, you can still see the standard menu.